Titans at Dolphins, Packers at Giants, props, predictions, tips, and best bets. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Prop It Up. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com, being joined, as always, by my fellow prop master, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com. We're going to be breaking down both of the Monday night football games from a props betting perspective. We thought that this weekend was going to be a very good weekend for props. Andrew, I understand you had a really, really nice day yesterday. I've got some bets to close out tonight, but let's just jump into it. Normally, we're only breaking down one Monday night football game, and as producer Dan said, why have one bad game when you can have two bad games on Monday night? Let's celebrate. I feel like if they would have just switched the opponents, wouldn't Dolphins and Packers been really fun, and then we can just ignore the Titans and the Giants. So
exactly.
But here we are. Yeah, here we are. So first off, nice job yesterday. And let's talk passing props in the Titans at the Dolphins. You looked over these props. What did you find in the passing props market?
Andy, I told you I'm back on the interception market. I'm not scared of these props anymore. I used to be, but not anymore. Tua has thrown an interception in 8 of 12 games on the year. And actually, people look at this Titans defense and say that it can get carved up pretty easily, but they've actually made plays. They've been getting interceptions in a handful of their last 4 games here. And the thing is, when you have Tua and all the weapons that he has, he's constantly putting the ball in dangerous areas. He's constantly going deep, constantly having a ton of height on the ball. And you're actually getting a pretty good price here at plus 105 to plus 110 with Tua to throw an interception. And the thing is with him is that they take sometimes such a short period of time to march the field. I always talk about possession and how, time possession for certain teams. Throwing an interception is bad for any team, but the way that they can just make up for plays or the way they can just get back on the board or get back on track, they put themselves in tough situations, but it's how they play, and they easily will not be scared to go back to their style. Actually, one of my plays I have in the receiving section kind of talks about just how willing they are to go deep constantly. And in my opinion, when he's doing that, it has something to do with how he's putting the ball in danger. So even though he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks, according to a lot of people, I like the interception prop on him actually for tonight. And then we look over with the Titans, and you can look at completions, you can look at attempts. To me, I'm actually going to just look towards the passing yards for Levis. It's at 210.5. This to me is an example where I just think this number is so big on the point spread, Andy. And I just think they really, especially all these props are really juiced up for the Dolphins all over the place, and the numbers are juiced down completely for the Titans just based on the absolute domination books and everybody out there seems to expect this game to be. And I just don't think they're going to be able to go to the run. They're not going to have time to. They're going to realize they have to beat the Dolphins through the air a little bit. And I just think this number at 210.5, looking at what he's produced recently and the amount of attempts that he's gotten recently, they obviously have the run game. We know about Henry and company, but I think that this is a matchup where you look at the Dolphins' opponents. They've actually been able to go over their passing yards simply because they have no choice when they're down double digits before they can even blink. So I think that 210 is a little bit too low, and I have to buy in on that one. But I'm expecting a good day out of Tua, but not before he gets me an interception.
That's interesting. You and I think we're going to go head to head. I like Levis under his passing yards. He went over this total last week, but he did it in overtime. And that was against a Colts defense that is just reeling. They're horrific right now. Before that, 3 straight games under 200 yards. And outside of DeAndre Hopkins, nobody in the passing game is scaring anybody. And even DeAndre Hopkins, I think this Dolphins secondary is going to be just fine to cover them. So I think Levis is going to struggle. When I'm looking at his game logs, Levis, against Atlanta, it comes in 238, against the Steelers, 262. And then we get film on him, and then 199 against Tampa, 158 against Jacksonville, 185 against Carolina. So I think this is a terrible spot for the Tennessee Titans. You got Miami, who's really pushing for a really, really solid possible number 1 seed in the AFC. Tyreek Hill just kind of keeps scooting up the board for the MVP. His number keeps getting smaller and smaller, although after last night, Dak is definitely in the driver's seat for that. But I think this Dolphins team is not going to have very many issues trying to defend this Titans team. So I'm going to go Levis under, but I got to say, it's not the most confident prop I have for this game. So even though I say, hey, this is my passing prop for it, this is not one I'm probably going to get to the window on. But yeah, this will be fun. You and I will go head to head on Will Levis. So let's take a look at some rushing. Yeah, let's take a look at some rushing props in this one. A couple of big names, especially for fantasy, as we're coming down to the fantasy playoffs. You got Derrick Henry, Devon A-Chain, but you got a lot of other guys who there are prop numbers out on. What do you like rushing props in this game?
So obviously this number is pretty low here for Derrick Henry, I'd say, for what we're used to seeing with him. I'm seeing 55.5 now for him. Miami ranked number 8 against the run. But as I talk about, a lot of teams just very quickly have to abandon the run when they go up against the Dolphins because of the points they're able to put up on the board. And because of that, obviously, I think we're seeing an adjustment. The numbers are a little bit higher for the receivers, but they're super low here for the running back. I'm going to go under on Derrick Henry here, under 55.5. If I look, Andy, I feel like it correlates, man. If we're going head to head with the quarterbacks here and I'm on the over, look, I got to go with the under with their running back here. I think that if you could take first half props, I would only look towards first half over for Derrick Henry. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very much. I actually would potentially maybe look towards him rushing plus receiving if I was going to get involved in an over with him. But I like the under there. Raheem Mostert, just to get in the end zone, just to get a touchdown. And you can kind of combo that with some other stuff, Andy. I'm not a huge same game parlay guy, but if you're same game parlaying with the Dolphins right now, you can usually pick Mostert or Tyreek to get in the end zone and parlay that with something else. And usually you can make some money with that. But his number at 45.5, even though he's kind of splitting the carries and kind of sharing the backfield a little bit, I think that number is a little bit low. So looking around at his production value and looking at what he does when they get a huge lead, I mentioned this spread might be a little bit big, but it's obviously big for a reason. You talked about it out the gate at the start of the show. It would be great if it wasn't these two teams playing each other and it was like Dolphins, Packers, and a different matchup. But even though the spread's so big, I think that they're going to take care of things. And in the second half, it's going to be really nothing else to do but just run the ball out. And that's the thing about this Dolphins team. When you use the expression run the ball out, usually it sounds boring. Their two guys don't make it boring. They're running for like 40, 50 yards sometimes and continuing the blowout. So I look towards the over from Mostert, but under on Derrick Henry.
I agree completely. It should be noted that last week, A-Chain was used to run out the clock late. It was like Mostert early, and then, I mean, what a two-headed monster. The other team faces Raheem Mostert, and then in the second half, you bring in a fresh A-Chain who hasn't taken any hits, and all of a sudden you got this speedster. I loved it. I thought, wow, that is very cruel to do to the other team to bring in a fresh A-Chain to run out the clock in the second half. I'm with you 100% on Derrick Henry. You and I are in a complete agreement. I have that noted down here. Just the game script. And I just think this Dolphins team, they're just going to stack the box and say, all right, Levis, go ahead, try and beat us. And I don't think he's going to be able to. So I'm with you on Derrick Henry. Sneaky one here. I do like Tua, under 2.5 rush attempts. He's gone under in 9 out of the last 10 games. Last week, he was credited with no rush attempts. And if this game script goes the way you and I think it goes, I don't see any reason why he would put himself in harm's way. It's going to be throw the ball away. It's going to be a lot of handing off to Mostert and to A-Chain. And if they do get into running mode in the second half, he's going to be handing the ball off. He's not going to be running himself. So it's kind of one of those low numbers and kind of those weird, quirky ones where you're a little bit nervous if he scrambles in the first quarter, but going under a 9 out of 10 games, that certainly has my attention. So I think that one is worth betting on. Tua under 2.5 rush attempts. Guys, we're going to get to receiving props. Please hit that like button. Leave us your best bet for Monday Night Football. Tell us how your weekend went, too. We were talking before we came on air just about how good that Dallas and Eagles game were for props and how many other really, really good props there were on the board. So leave us a comment. Tell us how your weekend went. Tell us what you like for tonight. Hit the like button. All kinds of things going on at WagerTalk.com. Andrew, before we get into receiving props, tell us what you have up and where we can find you at.
So just one best bet in the NHL tonight. It's a decent slate for a Monday, but didn't really love anything besides one play. So one play made the cut. It was a 3-0 day yesterday in the NFL. And that was low volume for me yesterday. And yeah, I was really tempted by more, but stuck with the 3 plays. And we've got just one play going tonight in the NFL. It is a prop bet. So guys, join me, get the 1-day pass, 7-day pass. It is also the last day, of course, for the rest of the year special. So if you want to get all the sports I'm doing, but it's a great time right now for me, and I'm heating up across all sports.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, listen, you don't need to apologize for a 3-0 day in the NFL, Andrew. It's okay. You're forgiven. So, nice job. I had a question from someone over the weekend about how do you narrow it down? He was like, I've got like 12 plays I like, and how do I narrow it down? And it was like, oh man, that is an exhausting process. So well done. You narrowed it down to your 3 best bets and you hit. Let's talk some of these receiving props. I'll go first in this category, Andrew. I have Jalen Waddle under 66.5 receiving. He's just not getting it done. If you own him in fantasy, it's been a really infuriating, just letdown type of year. He's not scoring touchdowns. He's not having these huge plays. He's gone under this total in 7 out of the last 9 games, which is surprising. This is a team that is very, very explosive, but it's like Jalen Waddle catches the underneath stuff. Tyreek Hill catches the long stuff. He only has a long catch over 20 yards in 7 out of his last 9 games, and he's only catching 59% of his targets. In this offense, that is not good. Compare that to Tyreek Hill, 73%. And Tyreek Hill has got a much longer average completion. So Tyreek Hill is catching way more passes. He's catching way more percentage of passes, and he's catching way more longer passes. And Jalen Waddle is just kind of getting the leftovers here. So it's weird to take an under in this Dolphins passing offense, but Jalen Waddle just has not been getting it done. So I like the under 66.5. I like Durham Smythe over 11.5 receiving. I love totals like this where you can get it on one catch. I love him on running backs who catch 2 or 3 passes every game. But I'll go ahead and take Smythe. He's gone over in 6 out of 8 games this season. The only games he went under were against the Jets and the Panthers. And this is a Titans team that give up 43 yards receiving to tight ends. He only had 1 catch for 10 yards last week, but he had 3 targets. And before that, he had caught 11 out of his 12 targets. So I think last week was a little bit of an anomaly. So hopefully get just one good pass from Smythe early on and get over this total. But I'll be taking Jalen Waddle under and Durham Smythe over his receiving. What do you like receiving props in this game, Andrew?
I'm right there with you with the Waddle under, and I think I love the way you said it, Andy. It's kind of funny to take an under on a receiver like that, just in a game like this where we're talking up a big game. We're talking like it's going to be a blowout. You know, the Tua should have a great game. You know, find his guys, and then hey, take this under, will you? You know, this is a guy that will not have a good day. But this is a good example to me of certain props where you're betting numbers, right? This is the point of emphasis here. You're not just trying to find a player. You're looking at the player's numbers and kind of what they're able to do. I was looking earlier this morning. So Waddle had 2 performances, 110 plus yards, and it completely skewed his averages on the season. If you look at his averages, it actually hasn't been. And that's my favorite thing about people that use average, right? Well, you know, this player had 4 goals one game, and so all of a sudden now in hockey they're averaging this many goals a game through 3 games, and this player has had a touchdown in 3 games. That are, you know, to me, the averages are one of the worst stats to look at because you can easily see things kind of die down, but they're holding on to that nice average because of a huge couple games that they had. And also just the fact that they have so many mouths to feed. Like, we know that Tyreek has a great day every day, it seems like. But they do have a ton of guys, not to mention their running backs that do catch the ball a handful of times themselves as well. And like you mentioned, his percentage, you know, of targets that he's actually catching, it's not very great. I mean, he gets looked to, and I almost find, like, when I watch the Dolphins games, it seems like Tua like gets frustrated with him. Like, if he like drops 2 or 3 balls, it's like, all right, man, like, I've got other guys to go to. And that's the thing. Like, I think unless he breaks off for a huge play after he catches the ball, I don't really trust him to go over this super high number. And here's one that I'm going back to, Andy, that I haven't really talked about very often. is the longest reception over. Tyreek Hill over 30.5 for his longest reception. In 8 of his last 12 games, he has cashed this one here. And this Titans team, they rank 27th in average depth of target. So they're always giving up longer passes. And really the thing is about Tyreek, though, he could catch a 10-yard pass and turn it into something. That's what's so great about him. But, I was watching the press conference of him last week, and they were just asking him, hey, Tyreek, how do you feel the teams aren't doubling you as much? And how do you feel that they're not, covering you in the secondary? He just said, thank you. Thank you very much. Because for some reason, Andy, they're not giving him the attention. Even if they did, I feel like they can't stop it. But it's a really good way, I think, of taking Tyreek and taking him to kind of have that one explosive play. And I think it'd feel pretty awesome if he actually somehow went under his receiving one of these days, but I had his over on longest reception because he's a guy that's constantly going over that. Good for one big play per game. And two is, like I said, is not shy to go to him. In fact, a lot of the times when he's throwing those interceptions I'm looking for is when he's looking for Tyreek deep downhill. So a couple that I like, and obviously both of them on the big name guys there for the Dolphins, but I'm right there with you on that Waddle under. I mean, look, there's so many guys, so many options, pretty big number for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is going to do it for the Titans and the Dolphins. Once again, hit the like button, leave us a comment, tell me what you like for tonight. I've got 2 NFL best bets actually up for tonight. Those are available at WagerTalk.com. Both of them are available on the domestic books on a really nice 26-6 all football run. So really happy about that. Was really excited, Andrew, that we cashed our team total in college football. Got Army over their total, so that's a 12-3 this season run on college football. So really happy with that. NFL is going well. We got a few plays to cash on tonight, so I grabbed that up at WagerTalk.com. Really happy with how NFL is going. Let's talk Packers at the Giants. We'll start with the passing props. What did you like in this one? We got Jordan Love versus Tommy DeVito. And what's interesting, Andrew, I was listening to a podcast about from a reporter from New York, and they were saying this Giants team absolutely loves DeVito. He is like their guy. He is like the locker room favorite. Everyone loves him. I think we're going to see him for the rest of the season. I think this Giants team could rally around him. I don't know. Any passing props you like with him or Jordan Love tonight?
I like it too. It's good for the game. It seems really fun. It helps that he actually has played decent as well. The thing is, they've actually been trying to keep the ball out of his hands. Don't let him know that or anything like that. But he's been good for the crowd, good for the media and things like that, and also good for a team that I probably would say has probably driven their fan base crazy over the last several years. But speaking of him, I'm going to look towards his under 27.5 pass attempts. There are some 28.5s out there as well. 5 straight games he's hit this. And, this is the thing about this Packers team is that I talked about how I found that, this might be a crazy statement to some people, but I feel like the offense that they were using at the start of the season was more accustomed to how they ran last year and how they ran in years past with Rodgers. Now that the offense is built for Jordan Love, I feel like it's a lot more just like short passes, dink and dunk type of stuff. I know there definitely have been some, nice plays, and he's still looking for his guys downfield, but the time of possession has really gone up. And I think it's taking time away from DeVito. And then when he does have the ball, I think they're looking for the run game. They're looking to utilize many different guys, but it just to me seems like their only offense they're creating is when they make one big play. Like they're not really marching the field by any means. 27.5, I think, is a big number for him in this one. And in particular, the Packers defense has actually gotten a lot better. So I think they'll shut him down. I like the over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Jordan Love. You can get actually around even money on that one. He's hit that in 4 straight games. There's been jokes on this podcast, this video here on Prop It Up about the run game for the Packers, what feels like all season long. But when it comes down to it, the Packers could be on the 1-yard line, and there's a good chance they might not run the ball in. This is a team I'm confident in what they're throwing. And as I've mentioned, the Packers, sure, they might not have an all-star receiver. They might not have these number 1 guys you're seeing in the highlights every week. But right now, one thing great about the Packers is that they have a multitude of guys. They have a lot of guys that are pass catching, and it keeps defenses guessing. So when you have a handful of guys that can be end zone threats, it helps you out with these passing props. So 4 straight gains for him. The completion props are flying over every week, it feels like, Andy, for Jordan Love. I'll take the over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
I love it. I'm on Jordan Love too. I'm going with his attempts over 30.5. He's had 36, 32, 40, and 40 the last 4 games. And you mentioned the last 4 games, and that it matches up. That's when they really turned him loose and said, okay, we got faith in you. Let's, go ahead. And he has delivered. His stats have gone up. His props have been cashing to the over in these last 4 games. So I'll stick with it. Mac Jones only had 21 against the Giants last week, but Sam Howell had 45 the week before. Dak had 35 the week before. And you're right about the dink and dunk, shorter passing. You don't have Christian Watson there. So I think it's just going to be a Jordan Love short passing game. And he's going to utilize a lot of those receivers. Like you said, he spreads the ball out really well, which means I really like his attempts to be going all over the place. And the Giants, they're not terrible against the run. I think if you're the Packers and you're saying, do we want to run the ball or do we want to put the ball in Jordan Love's hands? Decent weather tonight. Shouldn't be a factor. I think they let Jordan Love throw it a lot. So I'm with you on that one. Rushing props. I'll go first on this one. I'm going to Tommy DeVito under 16.5 rushing yards. He rushed quite a bit his first 3 games, but he's had 6 rushing yards and 7 rushing yards the last 2 weeks. I think a lot of his running was when his first option wasn't open. Well, we'll tuck it and run. I think he's being a little bit more calm, and instead of taking sacks, he's throwing it away. Instead of, running, if there's a broken play, he's finding other options. And I think maybe they told him, like, you're going to be our guy for the rest of the year. Make sure you stay healthy. Let's not be running into linebackers. So the Dolphins, they only allow 14 yards rushing per game to quarterbacks. So I don't see Tommy DeVito running a whole lot. And then I was looking at Saquon Barkley. I don't know if I'm going to bet it, but Saquon Barkley under 15.5 rush attempts, it seems pretty high. It's plus money. He's had 12, 14, and 13 the last 3 weeks. And with the Giants, I feel like we say this about Saquon Barkley almost every year. It's like, well, they're not playing for anything. They might rest him. So that was it's just like one of these guys where you get down towards the end of the year and you're going, why would we run Saquon Barkley into the ground? They're not controlling the ball a whole lot. They're not having a lot of success on the run. So I'm on the unders on this Giants running game, even though the Packers struggle. I just think Saquon. I don't see them giving Saquon Barkley a huge workload, and I got DeVito under his rushing total. What do you like rushing props in this one?
Yeah, Andy, so the show started off with us being a little bit head-to-head, but since then we've strung it together, and we've got something that we're on the same page with. Once again, under for Tommy DeVito on his rushing yards. A lot of these weeks I've been able to cash over on rushing yard props with teams that are playing against the Green Bay Packers, but this is one of those examples. Look, the guy had 6 rush attempts for 5 yards. I mean, the guy ran into his offensive line 5 times, ran backwards a couple of times. Attempts are one thing, but when you look at kind of what he's doing, I agree with you. Looking at some of the games, unfortunately putting myself through watching Giant games, Tommy DeVito has learned faster than a lot of younger quarterbacks getting rid of the ball, how important it is, right? Being able to just eat the sack, take it and don't actually try and put the ball in harm's way or put yourself in harm's way to lose the ball. So under on his rushing yards, I think is a great one. And then with Saquon, I'm actually just going to go under on his rushing plus receiving at 93.5, Andy. As I say to you, I kind of just like to throw in. It's kind of like when you do the rushing plus receiving combo, you're just boosting that number up. You're just getting the number a little bit higher. And to me, whether it's rushing or his receiving in general, I think that number is too high. I get it. He's the main guy on this team. Like, he's the guy that they want to put the ball into his hands, and I understand that. And I did say that I'm looking towards the unders on DeVito. But the fact of the matter is, I just think that the fact he literally is not able to utilize. He's the best when it's actually a close game. He's good when they're actually in tight. They're actually competing into a game. I'm not saying the Packers are going to blow the brakes off them. I think we both know out of the 2 games tonight, which one is more likely to be a bigger blowout. But having said that, I think, if the Packers do get a lead, it'll be tougher for him to get over this number. And at 93.5, I'm not even sure he'll be a part of the receiving game tonight. So I'll take the under, and I like comboing them together.
Love that one. I think that's a great look. When we get to props that we're hoping to see for next week, I'll talk about a guy who's been a rushing plus receiving machine. Let's take a look at receiving props. I only have one in this game. I think this is a pretty tough category for this game. So I can't say I feel great about any receiving props. But Wan'Dale Robinson over 25.5. He seems to be the only consistent receiver the last 2 weeks for the Giants. He had 3 catches for 35 yards against Washington, 4 catches for 26 yards against New England. But I think there are better bets on the board for tonight. So Wan'Dale Robinson, I don't know why you would need to bet on Wan'Dale Robinson. I certainly don't feel the need to bet on Wan'Dale Robinson. So I'll probably steer clear of this category, but it is one to potentially look at for tonight. Any receiving props you like in this game?
I might look at Reed under his 42.5 receiving yards here. Like I said, I just look at this Packers team, and there's so many mouths to feed. There's a lot of guys, and when Jordan Love's been going over his completions, the funny thing is, Andy, if you look across the board, not a lot of these receivers are going over on the receptions, which is kind of cool for a guy that, quarterback's always going over his completions. Receivers aren't really getting a high number themselves. It's really been spread out. So, with Kraft stepping up, with Dobbs playing the way he is, and overall the offense getting a lot of touches, I think that we're going to see that number getting up a little bit higher like it is here at 42.5. So I'll look towards the under. I think Hyatt is somebody I might look at for receptions for the Giants. A lot of times he was someone I'd look towards yards just because he's so athletic, what he's able to do after he catches the ball. But in a game like this, I don't even expect too many explosive and deep plays for the Giants. So I'll just stick with the receptions props there. But yeah, nothing really stood out because I think that it's, as much as I love the Packers, and I think that that's where it's a little bit easier to look towards the team we're expecting to be stronger offensively. They're really mixing things up every week, Andy. So I'm not really sure whose day it's going to be. I got to say, though, I've been really impressed with Romeo Doubs. Like the connection he has with Love. Everyone expected kind of that connection, I think, to be with Watson, but it seems like he has great chemistry with him. And I actually didn't look at it, but just at the top of my head and remembering, watching them, I wonder what his longest reception prop is, because he's kind of good for that one big target every game, it seems like, as well.
Yeah, I can look that up. We can take a look here at what the longest reception is. You know who else has been great at their longest reception is Cortland Sutton. He's been getting there. He just catches one long pass every single game. That was a client play yesterday. And what's crazy about those longest receptions is you can not even be close to hitting it for 3.5 quarters. And then just there's a really, really long pass. And Sutton has it. That's what happened yesterday. So he keeps getting one of these every game, even though the Broncos don't even throw the ball a ton. So it's a good look. So Dobbs, let's see, Jalen Reed's over longest receptions, 20.5. Dobbs is 19.5. Jalen Hyatt is 15.5. Wicks is 17.5. So most of them are around that 20-yard mark. So if you're looking for longest reception
for Dobbs,
yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to do it for the 2 Monday night games. We're going to take a look ahead to next week. We've got Saturday games. We've got Sunday games. We've got a Thursday game. So make sure you hit the like button. Leave us a comment. Andrew, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Some teams are eliminated. Some teams are fighting for their playoff lives. So we have to, take all of those into consideration. Weather now, we have to take a look at. These games that are being played outdoors could have some bad weather. But looking ahead, any props that you're hoping to take advantage of next week?
I want to keep looking at Austin Eckler props at this point. I think that Cash talked about it on Friday and propped up about him. It was one of my client releases looking at his over on rushing yards. And obviously he had a great matchup. But I think what's really important to look at is that sometimes you would want to go away from a rushing prop when you didn't expect a team to win the game or when a team is struggling to win in general. It just seems to me like this Chargers team is really, really putting a lot of emphasis on how important their ground game is, because if they don't open that up, it makes things harder for the passing game. And we know what happens when Herbert has nothing to do with but pass, not hand the ball off. It becomes very predictable for defenses. So I want to kind of look to see what the Eckler number is going to be. I'm tempted by the Vikings team total under, and I know that might sound cliche because, well, look what the kind of game they were just involved in. That was crazy. I ended up jumping on that one before the game. I got 16.5, Andy. And at halftime, when I saw what their live number was, I was smiling ear to ear. But, the Bengals defense, I think that you look at the matchups they've had recently, and they've actually played some teams that put up numbers, right? Even this past weekend against the Colts, their defense were able to make some stops, but they've played some teams that have constantly been in the 20s, had passing yard prop over constantly for their opponent's quarterback. These guys are playing well. So I feel like this is a matchup against the Vikings team. Man, they've gone downhill. Like, this is, what happened to all the hype about this team 4 weeks ago? That's completely gone now at this point. Jets team total under, I'm kind of thinking about. I'm going to be looking at props for just fading some of these Jets receivers. When they play teams like the Dolphins, when they play high-end teams, they can't compete. And the fact of the matter is, not that they can't even compete, they don't even have the ball in their hands. That the time of possession is so low for them. They can't establish any offense. That'll be one that I don't really want to overthink. And then I'm just going to say it. I've heard you say it before in some videos. How can you not take Travis Kelce next week? He's someone that I'm going to be looking at. Chances are I'm locking in a client play on him as fast as I possibly can. When you have an angered KC team, when you have a team that, first of all, this is a betting show, not a sports radio show, but I understand what Patrick Mahomes was saying to the media there. And not like I can't understand what he was complaining about. More so I can't understand that you're a Super Bowl champ. You're supposed to be a professional. It's supposed to be one of the best guys in the league. And yet you're coming to the press room and just complaining about that stuff. I don't like that, but I feel like they have a great opportunity to respond against the Patriots. And I think they will do that. So especially with a tight end position like Travis Kelce, I'll be looking towards his overs. So that's about it for me. I did think that I kind of want Derrick Henry to have a bad game this week, tonight, Andy, and then have a good one next week. I think he has kind of a better matchup against the Texans. But other than that, that's all I really found there. And I think my best one that I'm looking ahead the most for, obviously I mentioned Kelce, but I really, really want to bet that team total under for the Vikings. I have no faith in them. There's no bounce back for me that I'm predicting for that team.
No, we'll have to see what happens with Chargers and Justin Herbert with that fractured finger. Playing the Raiders, it's a short week. He's come out and said if there's any chance for me to play, I'm going to play. I don't know when we'll get notification on that. I don't know how much it affects Austin Eckler's props, but that's a Thursday game. We'll have to wait and see on that one. I'm with you on the Vikings. What did I see? That the Minnesota Vikings and the Minnesota Wild game ended at the same score. They were both 3-0.
Yeah.
We do a segment on the Road to Millions about sports records that'll never be broken. That there's no way that'll ever happen again. A hockey team and a football team from the same city play on the same day and it ends on the same score. No way. There's no way that happens again. So, let's see. Props I'm looking forward to. My Colts, Andrew, can't stop running backs, quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends. You name an offensive position, they can't stop it. Mixon was an easy over. Browning was an easy over. They play the Steelers. Based on what we saw from Trubisky last week, I wonder if Mike Tomlin allows him to throw the ball more than, 11 times. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren over their rushing yards, over their rushing attempts. They're both going to be utilized at a huge rate, especially on a short week. They will beat up that Colts defense. So I would take a look at that one for sure. I really want to do something with the Broncos because this Lions defense is broken. It is just a shell of itself. They cannot stop anybody, and I just don't know who to take on the Broncos. Maybe do what you did and just say team total on the Broncos because this Lions team isn't stopping anybody. It's 2023. It's almost 2024, and I can't believe I'm betting on Joe Flacco. But that was an easy cash yesterday on his over yards. Just throwing the ball 40 times, 45 times. And this Bears defense, kind of sneaky good. This Bears defense, I kind of don't want any part of right now. I think he throws it a ton. I don't think they're going to have a lot of success running. So I can't believe we're going to take Joe Flacco over his pass attempts, but here we are. A couple other ones that I was looking at, just doing something with the Falcons over the Panthers. The Panthers are just terrible. Bryce Young under everything. They don't trust him. The offense is terrible. I would also, I mean, the 49ers and the Cardinals, I guess that might be like same game parlay heaven right there on the 49ers. You could probably take like Purdy to throw a touchdown, McCaffrey 50-plus rushing yards, Debo 50-plus receiving yards, and probably end up with something really nice there. And then the guy I was mentioning earlier that is just a rushing and receiving machine right now is James Cook for Buffalo. They changed coordinators, and he is flying over his rushing and receiving total. They're utilizing him receiving and rushing. And I watched the end of that game, and I was horrified how Buffalo utilized the clock down the stretch. Like they're within field goal range. There's a couple minutes left, and it's like, why don't you just hand the ball off? Nope, 3 straight passes. We'll just stop the clock for Kansas City. Like James Cook is doing good. Yeah, I know, but let's bring in Latavius Murray. Like, okay, all right. But James Cook is doing good. No, we want Josh Allen scrambling so he can throw it out of bounds. I can't believe what Buffalo is doing, but numbers don't lie. They're utilizing James Cook, and he looks absolutely fantastic. So I would be looking at something like that. And then we'll be on the Monday show a week from today to talk about the Eagles and Seahawks, and we may have to bring on producer Dan so he can go on his tirade about the Philadelphia Eagles. We may just like hit the record button and let Dan go, and that may just be the Monday show. And yeah,
he knows that team pretty well, I'd say. He knows that team pretty well. I agree with you though with the Bills running game, man. It's very consistent, and I feel like, do you believe that correlates with Josh Allen rushing unders himself, like long term, that they kind of want him to stop doing it, or he's going to just consistently put himself in harm's way when he's told not to?
I watched that game, and I was so confused with what Buffalo was doing. And it made no sense. I thought they gave Kansas City gift after gift after gift. I didn't think Kansas City played good at all. And then I just watched Buffalo. Like, okay, it's 1st and 10. What are we going to do? Let's do a bubble screen to Stephon Diggs into triple coverage. Like, what is that? Like, where was Gabe Davis yesterday? Like, did anybody see him out there? I watched the Bills, and I was thoroughly confused. It didn't seem to have any rhythm. Stephon Diggs is now, I mean, he's crushing fantasy teams. Like if you have a playoff team, if you have a fantasy team that Stephon Diggs is on, and you have better options, I could absolutely see you not using Stephon Diggs against the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys could take away Stephon Diggs. So if I'm in the fantasy playoffs and if I have Diggs, I'm horrified, man. I am really, really terrified about what to do with him. So I didn't think the Bills looked good at all, but James Cook for prop betting purposes is absolutely one way to go. So let's see. And Andrew, do you think Patrick Mahomes, you mentioned, that this isn't like a sports radio show, but real quick before we go, do you think this is just Patrick Mahomes' frustration boiling over? His receivers are just killing this team, and he can't come out and say it. like he can't go up to the podium and be like, why are you lining up off sides? So he has to go somewhere else. This just seems like a very, very frustrating season for him. Do you think that's what it is? Or do you think he was actually that mad at the refs? I think he was more mad at his team.
Oh, I think so. I think it's definitely an example of like choosing somewhere wise to take your anger out on. I mean, I guess it's not wise, but it's better than doing it in your own locker room, right? But no, the thing is, there was credit given to the Chiefs. Like, this is a new Chiefs team. They run the ball a lot more. They win lower scoring games. Their defense improved, but their offense isn't as, electric. But all of a sudden, because of that, we're finding them in lower scoring. Like, a lot of games that they used to play in that were close would be 30-27, not 2017. You know what I mean? And now things have kind of changed for them like that. I think it's frustrating for Patrick Mahomes that he can't go out there and march the field and 3 plays and get in the end zone where he was able to do that with Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, Andrew, tell everyone what you have up and where we can find you at, and just give us a few seconds on NHL props. I'm loving the NHL props this season. I'm having a really good year with them. So yeah, tell us where we can find you at, and give us what's working for you in NHL.
Yeah, of course, wagertalk.com, wt.buzz/am is the short link you can go to. One best bet in the NHL tonight. We've got one best bet as far as the NFL prop market is concerned. Off a 3-0 day yesterday in the NFL, we'll try and make it a perfect weekend. Perfect week here in the NFL. As far as NHL goes, Andy, one thing I've really been leaning on a lot more lately has been the power play point props. I've talked about it here on Prop It Up before. But I'll tell you, man, like the difference you get in odds for a player to get a regular point 5-on-5 versus to get a point when they're on the special teams is a huge difference. You know, Patrick Kane, for example, he's going to be around plus 170, 175 for the Red Wings. They picked him up, you know, obviously free agent and unbelievable. They're saying could be one of the best ever American-born players, right? He is going to be settling in the most on the power play. You know, he's going to get his legs back. He's going to be able to get used to things, but you're going to get, you know, the minus 200s, the late 100s for this guy to get a point, but to get a power play point, you're getting that great number. Goalie saves. I'll tell you what, you look at some of these teams that are doing very well, you look towards the under in their saves. Very simple. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights when they're on a good streak. Look at the LA Kings when you expect them to beat a team. You know, Colorado Avalanche as well, Boston Bruins. Look down at the bottom feeders, like my Montreal Canadiens even. You've got the San Jose Sharks, and actually they've turned things around a little bit more. But the over on those teams for their goaltender saves, you know, why worry about taking shot prop overs for the other team when you can just take the over saves for the goalie they're shooting at? And I've noticed that very easily. Look at the good teams, Andy, the under for their goalie saves. They don't really get shot at much. And the opposite for the bad team. The goalie props are really working out this year for me.
Love it. Love it. I've got 2 Monday Night Football best bets that are up. And Andrew, I've just been loving these, playing these guys to not have assists and use them as parlay pieces. Friday on Puck Time, I talked about Jake Neighbors. He's the gift that keeps on giving. You can same game parlay him to not have an assist and to go over 1.5 shots. It's cashed, 9 straight games in a row. He has 1 assist on the season. 1. So you just keep using these guys as parlay pieces. And I mean, the gift that keeps on giving is Bouchard for Edmonton to have a point. He's now just on an absolute roll. You can even take him just to have a goal because it seems like he's, you know, his points are coming off of goals. But I would just use him as points. That Edmonton team is absolutely humming right along on offense now. So. And yeah, I'm with you. The San Jose
Feels
Sharks,
like just yesterday
over team.
Yeah. Yes, I know. It feels like just yesterday, though, we were crapping all over the Oilers here on the show when we brought up hockey, and now they're on a huge roll, man. And like you said, Evan Bouchard to get a point, he's also a big guy I've labeled as a power play point guy. A lot of the times he's getting a point. Also, plus 500 usually on him to score a goal. When he's scoring those goals, though, they're on the power play. So the Oilers are the perfect example, Andy, for that power play point prop. Those guys, I mean, they have the best power play in the league. It's unbelievable to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you can check out Puck Time Monday through Friday. Andrew and Carm do an amazing job hosting that on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. So that's going to do it for us today. Good luck on all your Monday Night Football bets, guys. We have a really, really busy, crazy week of football. We got Thursday game. We will be here Friday morning to go over all the weekend games. We do have Saturday and Sunday games. So give us a like. Give us a comment. Check out Andrew's NHL best bet. Check out my Monday Night Football 2 best bets at wagertalk.com. Good luck on all your plays. We will see everyone Friday on Prop It Up.